All right. Well, it is 6:30. Everybody have a chance to meet everybody? We won't go around and introduce ourselves. I'll introduce myself. We'll probably have some stragglers come in. But my name's Scott, and I partner with General Assembly to come and help you guys figure out how to communicate better, to get your ideas across, to get yourselves out there. We're talking about an elevator pitch, but it's definitely more than that. That's going to be the focus of this conversation, or what we work on here. Before I start the presentation, I just want to say I appreciate that you guys are here, and that just by being here and taking the time out of your night or day, you're demonstrating a commitment to get better. I mean, we're all trying to get better. And so time is short and time is valuable, and so it means a lot that you guys are here. I know General Assembly appreciates it. I appreciate it. I know most of you are probably affiliated with General Assembly in some kind of context related to their curriculum. I don't know if some of you just follow them on Meetup just to kind of see the different events that they have. I know occasionally they do kind of they call them soft skills type events like this. Anybody here been to a soft skills type event through General Assembly before? Can I ask what you guys went to? And
went to the hold on.
All right, while you're consulting your calendar,
Yeah.
What was the one you went to?
I don't remember the exact name of it, but it was a lady and she discussed like having self-confidence.
Oh, that's an important topic.
Yeah, it's like the one I went to may not have been so
What about the one you went to?
It was similar. It was about working with like your inner critic or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was the same one.
Nah, ours was more
Yours was-
finding a job in tech. So
Oh, well, that's
it's
kind of soft skills.
Yeah.
Well, this relates to all that. But yeah, that's good. How were those? Were they useful?
Yeah, great.
Yeah, anything that gets you kind of thinking outside of the box and working on development. So raise your hand first if you've heard of the concept of an elevator pitch. Yeah, pretty much everybody. Generally, everything that's out there about it, though, seems to be focused around the idea of like a founder pitching their company. And while that's definitely true, the elevator pitch is something that everybody needs. And you don't have to be starting a tech startup or, when you think about pitching your company, it doesn't have to be anything like that. I mean, that's one use case for it, but it applies to so many different things. So my hope for you guys today is that you'll better understand what an elevator pitch is and why it's important, and then through some exercises, practical application of it, that you can apply to whatever it is you're doing now or in the future. All right? Any questions before I start? We good? Okay, great. So what is an elevator pitch? Okay. An elevator pitch is a short description of an idea, product, or company that explains the concept in a way such that any listener can understand it in a short period of time. So, that's one definition. But generally speaking, I think that does a pretty good job of describing what it is. It's taking something that might seem complicated and distilling it to a very concise, very direct, very pointed description. And that's at a high level. What an elevator pitch, why elevator? Well, the idea is that if you're in an elevator and let's say, for example, Steve Jobs is dead, I'll say Bill Gates, I don't know, or Donald Trump. I don't know if you'd want to pitch Donald Trump, but just throwing that out there. I'm sure we'd all like to pitch him something. Steps in the elevator and says, so who are you and what do you do? You could say it's none of your business, or you could be ready to tell them. and you're not going to have a lot of time, right? Because they might be getting off the elevator 1 or 2 floors down. So it's generally something that's 60 seconds or less. I think the shorter the better. Less is more. But sometimes you need a little more time to convey ideas. So why it matters? Well, it communicates the most important aspects of whatever you're selling. Hi. You're just in time. We're only 2 slides in. Communicates the most important aspects of whatever you're selling within a short amount of time. Okay, so now you see that word, I know what you're all thinking, right? What are you thinking? I'm not in sales. I'm not selling anything. Well, guess what? We're all selling something, whether we know we are or not, all the time. Job interview. Anybody ever been on a job interview or plan to be on one? Are you selling something? Yourself, right? What you can deliver to that company. Anybody ever have to give a proposal for their company or pitch an idea for a new product or a new initiative or a better way of doing things? Right? You're selling. You're selling your idea. Anybody ever go out on dates or get involved in a romantic relationship? Have to ask somebody out on a date? Have to ask someone to marry you? Have to keep them married to you? Right? It never ends. Anybody can think of anything else that would, be where sales would kind of play into it? I mean, it's all around you. Just wondering if anyone has any ideas outside of these big ones. How so? That's interesting.
If you're going to a shelter, they don't let
Oh.
adopt.
Oh, so if you're adopting a pet,
You have to sales pitch how cool you are, how good of a
you have to convince them to trust you. You're not going to take the dog home and torture it, right? What about?
Just meeting anybody in general any time of the day, because within the first minute of the conversation, you're probably going to decide whether they like you or not.
Right. I mean, I don't want to be, but I am selling right now to you, right? Myself, you're judging me, you're wondering who I am, why am I talking about this, the content, everything, right? So my biggest thing in personal and professional development is coming from a sales background. It's teaching others to embrace the idea that we all have to be salespeople. That doesn't mean you have to work in sales professionally, but there are some very fundamental basic selling skills that are applicable to everybody, no matter who you are or what you do. And so I hope to kind of stimulate your brain around that idea. And I would encourage you to dive deeper into it, because it's only going to help you get better at whatever it is you're trying to do in life, in work. So the sales books and all the sales gurus, a lot of that is not just for salespeople. It's for everybody. So let's see an example of a 30-second elevator pitch from a non-salesperson who actually took the time to put a YouTube video together.
Hello, my name is Andrea Pitzer. I'm studying marketing at the University of Texas at Dallas. I am a member of the American Marketing Association and Alpha Kappa Psi, both of which are dedicated to shaping future business leaders. I hope to incorporate my business knowledge into consumer trend analysis and strengthening relationships among consumers as well as other companies. I am savvy, social, and principled, and have exquisite interpersonal communication skills. I know that I can be an asset in any company and or situation, and I hope that you will consider me for an internship or job opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right, so in that case, it sounds like she was actually presenting her pitch on YouTube for some kind of internship program. What do you guys think of that? I mean, that was only 30 seconds.
She said a lot in 30 seconds. I mean,
Almost too much, maybe, right?
It seemed a little, the authenticity of it seemed a little bit off, like she wasn't really being authentic. She was kind of trying
Well, it's very scripted.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, how many times did she rehearse that before she hit the record button?
When she said asset, she kind of hesitated over ass.
I mean, certainly if you stepped into an elevator and you met this woman and you said, hey, who are you? And she laid into that, I don't think any of us would be unimpressed, right? We'd probably be like, wow, she really knows who she is and what she wants. Personally, I think it's a lot. I mean, it almost crosses over into rambling. And so that's 30 seconds. Imagine if she went on for 60. So the elevator pitch, can you do it in 5 seconds? I mean, if you can, you should. The simpler it can be, the better. Less is more, right? You almost get lost, you know? It's like you had me at, I don't know, 30 seconds ago, 20 seconds ago. So here's mine. I didn't rehearse it, I don't have it memorized, but this is just one, okay? Scott Weiss, or I, have 20 years of professional sales experience, and I've spent the past 15 years in the staffing and recruiting industry. I own and operate my own technical recruiting firm in Seattle. I'm a father of 3, and I enjoy helping others in their personal and professional development. Was that like 12 seconds? Something like that? I mean, that's, and that's just one. I can give an elevator pitch about being a dad. I could give an elevator pitch about my business, about starting my business, about why I'm doing this. But I think for most of you here, my guess is you're here because you want to do a better job of conveying an idea, yourself, as it relates to, moving your career forward, or you don't really know how you're going to apply this, but you're just interested in the science behind it and to kind of get your brain thinking in this way. And I'll just back up for a second. I do mention the fact that I run a technology recruiting and staffing company, so I work with like heavy tech people, like software engineers, data analysts, data scientists, the kind of people that I think General Assembly is training to get out in the world and do the kind of work that the people I work with do. And it's amazing to me how difficult it is for so many of these people to communicate. I mean, they're so good at what they do, but they just don't have basic fundamental communication skills. They never had a chance to learn them. I had the benefit of, I studied theater in college and then I got into sales. So that's all about communication. But for a lot of these people, they've been so focused on head down, learning the academics of what they're doing, applying it, but they still have to get out and convince a company to hire them, right? Or pitch their idea or deliver on in an agile stand-up. What is the sprint they're working on and what did they deliver? So that's why I kind of started getting interested in this, is like, these people need help. And so I'm not suggesting that you guys don't know how to communicate. I'm just saying that it's a widespread problem, and I don't think there's enough emphasis put on it. So if we want to break down like the actual science of the elevator pitch, because we've talked about it conceptually, here's one simple kind of formula, right? Let's take the components of what the elevator pitch needs to contain. So in this case, I designed 4 components. Now, this is just one model. There's lots of them out there. But this, I think, gets the idea across. So component 1, product name or category, the who or the what that we're talking about. I pitched myself. We're talking about me. That gal pitched herself. She was talking about her. You might be pitching your idea for a better policy about TPS reports. I don't know, right? So that would be that. Or if you're pitching a company or a startup idea, maybe you want to find a co-founder. So that's the kind of the who or the what. Component 2, the problem you're attempting to solve. Now that can be inferred. You don't have to explicitly say this is what I'm trying to solve. I think in my pitch, I referenced that I've worked in staffing and recruiting or sales for 20 years, and I've worked in staffing and recruiting for whatever. I own my own firm. It can be inferred that the problem I'm solving is helping companies hire people, right? But it has to be in there somewhere. Component number 3, your proposed solution. That's tricky. I mean, I didn't really give a solution. I didn't say how I'm doing it, how I'm solving this problem. Again, I think it can be inferred. I think context is super key. So this doesn't need to be, it's not black and white. It's context. So what pitch are you writing? Who are you delivering it to? And in what context, it might look a little different. Like you have sometimes different versions of your resume, if you're trying to be a manager or an individual contributor, for example. Component number 4, What is the key benefit of your solution? Well, I guess if we're talking about context, the context of me giving you that pitch was to convince you that I'm worthwhile to talk about this subject, which I hopefully did. That was the goal. You don't have to tell me if I did or didn't. You're all still here, so I'll take that as a good sign. So here's an example of an elevator pitch with those components. Does anybody want to read it out loud other than me? No? I see this. Go ahead.
I am writing a new business book called The Art of an Elevator Pitch. It is designed for anyone who is trying to get attention for their product, services, or cause. I teach my readers how to master the techniques behind crafting and delivering an elevator pitch. My book will help my readers be more successful getting their ideas across to others.
So I'm not writing this book. I just took the 4 components and built a pitch with all 4 of them. And so if I was going in to see a publisher to convince them to fund my book, this might be a pretty good pitch, right? Because it has all 4 of those components. I'm the who or the what, the book I'm writing. What's the problem? I'm trying to help people do a better job of getting attention for their product, service, or cause. What's my solution? I'm going to teach you how to do it, the techniques, and then the key benefit. It's going to help the readers be more successful getting their ideas across. What do you guys think? Make sense? Are there any go ahead.
I like it.
Any components that I maybe left out?
Meaning like this is your pitch to somebody that you want to.
Well, if you think about like a recipe, like here's how you bake a cake. You have flour, all the ingredients. Those components are the 4 major ingredients. So maybe another component would be, for example, humor. I mean, that might work depending on context, right? Something, but it might not. Maybe that would be like the sprinkles on the cake. Some people like them, some people don't. I mean, are any other ingredients?
Well, you can come up with, like if you look at building relationships with people, right? If you know something personal about the person, then you might want to inject that into your story. Hey, I know that you also are interested in X, Y, and Z, what we're trying to do or something like that.
Well, that's challenging because, that suggests that you'd have to have some information.
Or you listen to their previous conversation.
Right, but what if you see them in the elevator and you've never met this? Well, I guess if it's Bill Gates, you'd know something about him. Hey, you're the guy that started Microsoft. But yeah, that's a good one. That's always. I mean, whoever you're talking to, if you know at least one thing about them, then you can tweak this to kind of align with where they're at.
You can come up with stuff, right? If you see somebody walking into an elevator dripping because it's been raining outside, it's like horrible weather out there. I had to deal with that too. Right now,
That's great. Yeah, building rapport. So that's like you nailed it. That's not here, and that's an important thing. So like when you go through sales training, they teach you that in your sales meeting with a prospect, you don't just start talking about or asking the questions to try to figure out what their problem is that you can align your solution to. You've got to build rapport. So you talk about something generic that you both, something that would be universal. The weather. Did I just say the weather twice? Well, the weather. It's a good one. It's usually what people talk about, right?
the weather is sports.
Mariners. How about the Mariners? Oh, their season's over. Yeah. But yeah, building rapport is huge. You could compliment them, right? That's a really nice shirt. I like your glasses. Something to kind of let their guard down, right? Anything else? Nope. Okay, so I came up with a couple of examples, and these are actually companies. And so I want to see if you guys can guess who I'm referring to with these. So I started a company where we help people get anywhere they want to go anytime at the push of a button.
Expedia?
It could be Expedia. Yeah, I like Expedia. It could be Expedia, but Uber. I mean, I just came up with that. But But you see how simple it can be, right? Now again, that's pitching a company, it's pitching a product. Hi. Oh, okay. No problem. Let's try another one. We keep you and your family healthy by bringing the largest selection of the world's freshest, naturally produced food directly to your neighborhood. Yeah, it could be. I don't think that's the exact one. Actually, it is, because yes, Whole Foods. They own Whole Foods now. So it is Amazon. It's Whole Foods, Amazon. The thing is it a commercial? Is an elevator pitch an ad? Are you advertising something? Is it a 30-second radio ad or a 15-second TV ad? I don't think so. But it kind of is. It's a tough thing, because when I've done these workshops before, when we get to the part where you guys are going to build your own kind of samples, a lot of times when someone will stand up to read it, it'll sound like a TV ad. I mean, the two pitches I just gave kind of sounded like that. But when you think about it, isn't that what an ad is? Isn't it an elevator pitch?
An ad as it is. I mean, on the examples you had, it wasn't so much an ad as a slogan.
Slogan.
Marketing slogan.
Good point. So is a marketing slogan an elevator pitch?
I mean, to keep it concise enough.
Right.
Go for 30 seconds and
I mean, at its core, what you're trying to do is you're trying to connect on some emotional level, right? Create urgency. I don't know if the components included that part, but you got to create some actionable urgency. How do you do that, you know?
Well, it's in your benefits, right? Your benefit statement or your ROI statement.
Right.
Yeah.
But if the person that you're delivering the pitch to doesn't share that problem or that need or that pain, there may not be urgency for them, right? But if you can convey that there's others or you know, there are people out there that will, maybe not you. Did that girl's pitch create any urgency? Do you think, could she have done anything different that may have?
it sounded to me more like she was taking the whole introduction aspect of a resume and condensing it into an elevator pitch. I mean, she had her statement who she was. I mean, she had those 4 components, but she also had her skill set.
So if you're the hiring manager for the internship program, would you consider her based on that?
Not if she had to do speaking and organize thoughts. I mean, because she just.
Did it seem to lack? Did it seem to lack emotion,
It
or?
was just very, like you said, it was scripted and she'd read it a few times.
Right.
And went at it.
Well, so since we're on the topic of selling and sales, my personal belief, and I could be wrong, I often am, my belief is that sales is really at its core just a transfer of enthusiasm, right? So you never really should be selling anything. You're not selling. You're just sharing something that you're excited about, you believe in, and you're aligning it to whoever you're sharing it with. That's why they say in sales, if you're in a sales job where you don't really believe in the product or service, you can fake it till you make it, but eventually you'll just burn out because you just don't have that enthusiasm, and it's going to be really hard to connect with people. And so maybe she doesn't believe in herself, maybe she doesn't know herself well enough yet. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of emotion. It didn't connect with me on that level. I wasn't super enthusiastic about her. She seemed smart, but so it's interesting to think if she was to go back and redo it, how she would come back and try it again, being less kind of academic about it and maybe more just human.
That'd actually be an interesting thing to do for a degree program is that has internship is to have them do that at the end of it, you know, prior to every summer internship and see how they progress.
Right. Well, maybe I'll reach out to her and give her our feedback. I don't know her. I just found her on YouTube.
She's a Texan. She can handle it.
All right. So let's try this exercise where you guys are going to do an elevator pitch about you. Okay? So I gave some bullet points. You're not really pitching anything, you're presenting. And no, you're not going to have to stand up and do it in front of everybody, but I'll certainly make the time if one or more of you would like to. Again, getting out of your comfort zone, like I would encourage you to take every opportunity to do that. I have a theory that I think everybody should go do stand-up comedy at open mic night at least once. Because if you can get through that, you can pretty much get through anything. So I've got paper and pens there, or you can use your own. But try to come up with something that, if I asked you to stand up and tell me about yourself, you'd have a 15-second spiel. All right?
I have one question.
Sure.
How do you go about determining who your product's for? Like category 1 or something?
Okay, how do you determine who your product is for? Well, that's a whole nother conversation. You mean, how do you know who your audience is? Do you have a product that you're working on that you're not sure who the audience is?
Well, so I guess some context, I'm a UX designer, so part of your pitch was you design websites and then for somebody. I don't know, whoever give me a job. I don't have it that specific or broken down.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would hope that if you're going to take the time to present yourself, your idea, your product, your service, that you know who your market is. And if you don't, well, then you've got to do the research, right? It's kind of like if I'm going to go out and apply for a job, I have to know what I'm bringing to the table and then who is going to desire that skill. And fortunately, in the world of jobs, there's job boards. So I can just, in your case, you could just go on LinkedIn and do a search and UX designer. Now you see the companies that are saying, we need this talent, we need this type of person. But I think that in any type of anything that you're putting out in the world, you can't just put it out there. You kind of got to know who you're targeting or what you're targeting. And if you don't, then you have to do the research. And you have to think about what problem am I solving and who has that problem. I haven't. That's a really deep question, and that could be a whole nother hour worth of conversation. But it's a great question. Hopefully, I gave you something to think about.
Yeah, that helps, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe a sleep paper.
Have you read Pitch Anything?
Have I?
Yeah, by Warren Clapp.
Oh no. You're asking if I've read it?
Yeah. Pitch Anything?
Oh, it's a book?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I'll check it out. Does he talk about some of this stuff?
Yeah, he goes into detail, and it's really cool. It's one of my favorite books.
Oh, I'll check it out. Thank you. Anyone want to volunteer to stand up and read theirs?
Sure, I don't mind.
Nice. Do you want to come up here?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Don't throw anything on the floor.
You're going to do it off the cuff? No script?
Yeah, no problem.
Wow. Nice.
Hi guys, my name is Cas Hoffman. I'm brand new to Seattle. Moved here about 2 weeks ago. My girlfriend and I used to live in New Mexico before we lived here. And my day job, I work for a little startup in the Bay Area called Oracle. And when I don't do that, I work on a startup that's trying to revolutionize the aviation industry.
Nice. Awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, I'd say he nailed that. Humor, right?
I want to go next.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Nice. Make sure you're in front of this camera so our friends that are watching at home can see you.
Okay.
You don't need to speak to them. You can speak to them.
Right to you. So my name is Brian Mitchell. I grew up in the Dallas area, but for the last 20 years I've lived in Colorado, working for a little startup company called Oracle that I no longer work for. And so therefore I moved out here searching for a job and to live with my brother and be close to family. For fun, I like to play disc golf and play board games and escape rooms.
Nice. Thank you. Not too bad.
Sorry, I had to go because he worked for Oracle. And I just used to up until
Yeah.
the 16th of September.
Oh, how does that feel?
You know, actually, it was not bad. Anybody with half a brain in our organization knew that it was just destined. It was going to happen.
How long were you there?
I had been there for 3.5 years.
Well,
You came over with the NetSuite acquisition?
No.
Oh, Colorado.
We can talk later.
well, thank you guys for
I
sharing.
would actually even still work for Oracle. So.
Good. Well, thanks for sharing. Anybody else? Go ahead.
Bring my script just in case.
Yeah, please.
So, hi there, I'm Jacob. I was born up at the UW Hospital just a few miles up the road, and I actually went to grad school at Washington State, so I like to say I'm a Husky by birth, Cougar by choice. So I got my MBA at Washington State in 2014. Currently, I'm the contracts director for a large organization within the United States government, and we buy over $12 billion a year worth of goods and services from industry. So I'm married, and I have 2 mini poodles, no kids of my own, but I do have a little nephew at 2 years old that we just adore. I'm an avid outdoorsman. I love to do anything outside, especially in the snow. I'm a big skier, and I'm currently training to be a rescuer for the King County Explorer Search and Rescue.
Nice. Thank you. So not really like pitching anything, right? Just sharing. But having to get up and convey something and leave an impression of one sort or another, right? So good job, you guys, doing that. Thank you. All right. What I wanted to do is have you guys now go into small groups and work on a pitch for General Assembly. That can be tricky because General Assembly can be many things to many different people. But let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I guess if we could get into like maybe 4 groups. I don't know, there's 13 people, so 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and then you 4 right here. And before we do that, any thoughts or feedback or comments on the pitches that were given? I mean, I don't think we're necessarily here to critique. I mean, unless you wanted some critique, but I'm not really prepared to give that. I think just getting up and doing it is enough. Any thoughts? No.
I just want to mention that kind of all the things that you asked for were kind of disparate, and so they did a good job of connecting everything, and there was a flow to how it was very natural to what they shared.
Absolutely.
Themselves.
All 3 of them.
Mm-hmm.
You mean the bullet points that I laid out?
Yeah, I mean, you go from where you grew up to hobbies and what you do now and family, like just all these different things. It seemed like they tied them together really well.
Yeah, and the presentations that the gentleman gave aren't necessarily following the same format as kind of what we talked about with the different components, right? Because context. They're just getting up and introducing themselves. They're not necessarily trying to convey anything other than who they are. Again, before we break out into this exercise, because I kind of went a little faster than I thought I would, are there any real-life applications that you guys are hoping to take what you are learning here and apply to out in the real world? Because then it would be helpful to know what some of those are, because then we can speak to those and make sure that you leave here with some connection to the kind of the content here and then what you want to do with it. It would be helpful for me to know if anyone's willing to share.
Can I make a comment real quick? So just like you asked me that when I walked up, are you going to do this off the cuff, right? I looked at your requirements and I'm like, okay, this is what I do every day when I present myself. Like I could do this pitch in 15 different ways. But what was fundamental for you, what you did on one of your very first slides, is you laid out your 4 different blocks with the elements that underpin a pitch. Right? And I've done a lot of soft skills training in the last couple of years because that's what the company I work for does a lot. And every time I go to a soft skills training, I feel that I get confirmation that what I've been doing in my job for the last 20 years is actually right, but I've been doing it the right way. I just never really thought about the fundamental building blocks for that. So for me, it's like the most important thing coming out of this up to now is like, okay, if I can think about those 4 building blocks, I can build any pitch. And maybe that's, I think that's what you're trying
yeah, so what you're saying is that the exercise where you come up and introduce yourself, that's old hat to you. You've done it a million times. So you don't have to think about constructing something because it's already there. But if you mentioned your aviation startup, if you're thinking about presenting that, for example, you'll have to build.
I'd have to build a new one, but I can do the personal pitch because I do that every day, every time.
Yeah, and it's granted that's very entry level, but the idea is to get you guys thinking. And
but fundamental for me, and that's what I'm trying to convey to the rest, is like, okay, but if I think about that pitch, right, just how you introduce yourself to a person is just a talk track. But if you take those 4 elements, I appreciate those 4 elements because they actually make total sense.
so what are some ways that you guys in the real world could potentially use those elements? Like, I don't know if there was something specific in your life that is existing today or may exist in the future that you hope to apply this. You mentioned being a UX designer.
Yeah.
Right.
Even networking to pave the way for a job interview.
Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. So you're saying that you're trying to figure out how to convey yourself in a job interview specifically, or to get the job interview?
Both. I mean, I guess like I'll have calls with recruiters and they sort of ask me what I'm looking for, and like it was pretty well, but based on your presentation, I guess that's the thing I'm probably missing, and it's good to identify that and I can try to refine it more.
So the prompt from them is, tell me about yourself, or what are you looking to do, and so to be able to have something where you're not rambling, but you're being very specific and targeted.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I'm a UX designer. I've been doing it for a year and a half. I love doing that. I love working with computers, and I'm looking for a job opportunity that will give me the chance to work with a group of individuals who can help me grow and stretch my thinking and work in an organization that I'm passionate about.
All right, you can go home.
That was really good. Our practice.
Yeah, no, that's great.
That's really good.
You forgot to tell them why they should hire you.
Well, he kind of,
Make you want to be passionate.
I mean, he said he liked working with people and he wants to learn. I mean, that might be reason enough, right? Is he going to say because I'm an incredible UX designer? Maybe. I'm one of the best. Maybe not the best, one of the best. Job interview, is that in the future for you?
Right. Yeah, I hope so. But more just getting out and networking. I'm doing a lot of networking, meeting new people, that are recruiters or working for companies that I may be interested in. And so who are you? What do you do? That's That's the perfect.
Yeah, it's like, here we go, right?
Elevator.
What part do you want to hear?
Yeah.
I always hated that question. I still do. So what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you guys get that?
Yeah.
It's not as common. I lived in Los Angeles for about 6 years. That was like everybody's way of introducing themselves. So what do you do? It's like, what do you mean? Like, what they're really asking is, how do I make a living, right? So I say, you mean, how do I make money? If that's all you want to know, I'm happy to share that with you. It's an icebreaker, I guess.
Yeah.
What else? Job interview? Go ahead.
Specifically internships for next summer.
Oh. Are you going to make a YouTube video like she did?
No.
So you have to, when you go out for an internship, do you have an opportunity to pitch yourself? Or is that, because one of the challenges is, with job search is like, isn't that the goal? Isn't that like what the resume does? Is it kind of does the pitch for you, but you don't get to humanize it really because it's just data on a Word or PDF document?
Well, that's just the first thing, is you have to get through the automatic search engines, and you just pad your resume.
So you're saying if you can open up the door, like that's your first step for the internship is to open up a conversation and using the resume to do that?
No. So I go to networking events, specifically to meet recruiters at job fairs and just like what you would consider continued education events. And then I practice my elevator pitch there with recruiters or people who are close in the hiring process to get referrals for internships.
Right, because they're standing there at their booth or table, you walk up, and they're kind of like, you know who they are, right? They've got the name of their company and you know what they're about. Maybe not personally, but generally speaking. But you're just some person, right? So you have to be able to...
For a job fair, that works out pretty well. If it was like any of the continued education networking events, it's you're introducing yourself to anybody that's there, and they may or may not have a hand in the hiring process.
You mentioned it works out pretty well. It's a good point. How do you know if the pitch that you're delivering is resonating? How do you know if it's working?
I personally ask for LinkedIn connections,
And if they give it to you, that means it worked?
or at least it was good enough for them to consider.
So you just laid out a sales opportunity, right? The deal is closed when you ask for their LinkedIn connection and they give it to you. Then you close that deal, right? How will you know in the UX world when you're out interviewing, or how will you know when you're talking to a recruiter if your pitch works?
Tough to say. I mean, it's only often my subjective opinion about how it went. I mean, I know when it didn't go well. Like it feels choppy. But other times it felt like it went smooth, and then I don't get a call back later, but I feel like, well, it probably went well. But who's to say?
Do you think, I don't have the answer, I'm putting it out to you guys, do you think that when you pitch something that you should have an objective in mind of what will come, what the action is? I mean, does it make sense to pitch something if you don't have a end goal tied to it? Like, what is the next step? What is the action? Again, if you meet Bill Gates in the elevator and you pitch him on who you are, I'm just saying Bill Gates, just using that name. Is there something that you want to have happen? Like, what's the next step? Like, wow, it was great to meet you. You're a really interesting guy. Give me a call and we'll set up a coffee meeting. Or am I just putting something out there just to make myself feel good? I think you kind of have to have an end goal. You should.
Well, if it was Bill Gates, I'd probably try to convince him why I need money.
Yeah. Well, maybe you'd ask him for more time, or that you're interesting enough that it would be worth his time to talk with you about your money situation. If you can get him to give you money in 15 or 30 seconds, that's a good pitch. But I do think that there needs to be some objective. You wouldn't get up at your company and present to your team this new idea you have about this new process or doing something differently if your end goal wasn't to change the process, right? And when you guys came up and introduced yourself, the goal was to do it, to then be able to go home tonight and say, I did it. I was one of the people that got up and did it, and I did it. That's your objective, and you achieve that objective. Sure.
When you're going through the entire job interview process, it kind of feels like you're just one of 1,000 other people who look exactly the same. Like, how do you make the product that you were selling stand out, even in a generic sense? Like, if you're selling a vase and someone next to you is selling the same vase, what do you say as a salesperson to get the person to buy your vase?
Well, I think the answer, in my opinion, and I'd love to hear what other people think, is that the difference is the relationship that you have to develop. There has to be some connection made, because you're right, everything's commoditized, right? You're one of 1,000 applicants or one of 1,000 vases. So your only advantage is that you actually make a connection on a personal level, because I believe that ultimately, relationships is everything. Like, at the end of the day, that's what everything comes down to, is relationships that you have with your potential buyer, with someone that you want to go out on a date with. It doesn't matter. It's all relationships. Your product can be amazing, but if you don't have anyone to present it to. So, am I on the right track? Because I'm going to tell you how to work through that. You mentioned job interview, and since that's come up a few times, you're not there to just tell them about yourself and answer their questions. You're there to build a relationship. And so you have to get them talking, and you get them talking by asking good open-ended questions. So in sales, again, we learn the 80-20 rule, that you really should be listening. You're not learning anything if you're talking. So you want to listen 80% of the time and talk 20% of the time. In a job interview, that's really hard because they're firing questions at you, and you're just responding to those questions. So it feels like a monologue, right? But what the mistake that most people make, and it's an easy fix, is every interview question, your response is kind of like your elevator pitch, right? It's like, here's my response, keep it concise, because even at 30 seconds, it starts to ramble. And we all make that mistake, but then you've got to ask them a question back. So if they ask you, tell me about how you went through this challenge at your last company, the goal is to deliver a concise answer and then ask them back, can you tell me a little bit about how that might work here? Or what would be a time or an example where that happened at your company? And it's amazing what happens then is because once they start talking, they don't stop. And now they're selling you instead of you selling them. So, and then you walk out of there feeling like, okay, I made a connection, because it wasn't just me talking and them listening. Like, I'm trying to not talk too much right here tonight. It's hard because I'm the one presenting the information. But the more that I can engage you and we can have a conversation, then I feel like the more compelling it is. What other examples of applying a pitch in your life besides a job interview, internship? You mentioned adopting a dog.
Asking your boss for something.
Like time off?
Time off, or starting a new program or initiative, something like that.
Perfect. So you ask your boss for 15 minutes to chat about an idea.
Yep.
Right? So then how do you know if they're bought in or not on the idea? You'll know, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll think about it. We'll get back to you. Yeah, that's why I gave up on corporate America, because that was the response I got every time. Maybe I just wasn't pitching effectively. But it was always, yeah, it's a great idea, Scott. We'll definitely consider that, and we'll let you know. And then you just decide that you can't make an impact, and you go off and start your own company, which is what I did. But maybe that's just me. So in that case, you're sitting down with your boss and you're pitching, and you want to know that they're on board with it. So if he says what, or she says what, how do you know, like, what would be the action that you'd hope that would come from that?
But you could get a call to action at the end, like a decision right then, or the next steps, or a commitment for something.
A commitment for something, absolutely. That's what you want to get. Always a commitment. They don't have to buy, you don't have to go on a job interview and get a job offer that day. But you don't want to leave without a commitment for some next step, some action. Because then you're just, what do you walk away with? Nothing. So what can you ask for? Are you actively looking for UX work? Okay, so when you talk to a recruiter, what can you ask for?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Decision, follow-up meeting.
a commitment to send my resume to 2 of your clients? Yes or no? Is it going to happen or not, right? No, I'm sorry, I don't really see a match. Okay. Can I get a commitment that we can talk in 2 weeks and see if anything new's come up? You ask. You got to ask for it, right? Otherwise, you're just kind of throwing caution to the wind and just hoping something comes through. You meet with your boss to pitch this idea. You've taken the time to think about it. You've thought through it. You've developed your pitch for it. And the boss looks at you and says, that's great. So maybe it's on me. Maybe I didn't ask my boss for a commitment whenever I pitched something. I just pitched it and hoped that they would get excited about it, and then I'd be done. So shame on me for not maybe saying, okay, I'm glad that you think it's a great idea. You said that about the last 3 ideas. Can I get a commitment from you that you'll talk to your boss and run this by your boss? And then that we can talk about it a week from today and you can tell me what feedback you got? Bless you.
Or it could even be like permission to go do something yourself, right? Like I want to set up a team to do something. Like I'm letting you know this is what I want to do. I go set up the team, do our initial steps, and come back to you. So that way you're not putting something on the boss or someone else to do. That way you're just doing it yourself and going back.
Right.
So instead of asking the recruiter, can you follow up with me? Like I'll follow up with you. So that way you do the work and they're just still there.
But they're committed to
Meeting again.
Got it.
Yeah, so you don't ask them to actually do anything instead of like, hey, I'll come back with this.
So that matrix that I had with the 4 components, I do think a missing component is the call to action or the commitment or the next step. Again, the example of the elevator pitch, you walk in the elevator, someone says, who are you, what do you do? You tell them, they smile and they say, thank you, have a nice day. Okay, well, what's that? Like, no, I want your money, or I want to know that we can have another meeting to talk more about this. So you have to ask for something, right? Or not, I don't know.
I had an experience where like I had an idea for something. I went to my manager and I went and I've done a lot of stuff, so I kind of knew I had some strategy, and I was like, hey, can I, it was a design project, so UX design, product design, and I said, hey, I have this idea, can I flesh it out, and then can I shop it around to the stakeholders? So I didn't put the pressure on him. I was able to just go and meet with other people, and he got excited about it, and the product went forward. So I was like,
So you got his buy-in,
yeah,
not
I
necessarily.
would just give it to him. I don't think it would. He didn't really do anything with it. I think.
So you asked for his blessing.
Yeah, kind of just went around. It went around him with his blessing.
So kind of like what you said is like you're willing to do all the work.
Right.
You just want to make sure that you have his blessing. He's on board with it.
Yeah.
And you asked for something, right?
Yeah.
You asked him, "Are you okay with this?"
Yeah. I have time to do this.
Got it. So I think it's an important thing to consider is that whatever it is you're pitching or presenting, that there should always be some call to action or some ask. You know, another kind of philosophy I have in sales is that good salespeople give first and then ask in return. So I don't ask you for something if I haven't first given you something. And that could be anything. It could be an idea, a suggestion, content, an introduction to someone else, whatever. And then there's almost like this kind of social equity where it's like it builds trust. Like I give to you. Now you trust me a little more than you did, before this happened because we were strangers. And then now maybe I can come back and ask you for something. Right? You give the idea to the boss and then you ask for permission to kick it up the chain. I can't think of a time where you'd give a pitch of any sort and you wouldn't want there to be a next step. And just the whole nature of a pitch is you're trying to get buy-in for something, right? All right, why don't we have, go ahead.
So like one objection, I guess, to asking for a commitment is that it seems kind of like validation-seeking behavior, which is like a major deal killer. So like, how do you make it not seem needy? Was this good? Can we follow up later?
Well, validation-seeking behavior would be like, did you like what I just said? Right? Like, was it good enough for you? Like, I don't know if it's exactly that, and feel free to chime in. I think there's a difference between validation-seeking, which is, do you like me? And action, Like, action. This needs to happen next. I need this to happen. This is what needs to come from this experience. And I don't know, I see a difference. Maybe you don't. When I think of validation-seeking behavior, I think of you come up and you give your pitch and then you go, well, what'd you guys think? How did I do? That feels kind of weak. Maybe that's what you're inferring.
I think it's that word. I think like if you do an interview and you go through that interview, you spend the time to come to that interview, you have earned the right to ask for follow-up.
Absolutely. Not only that, and since we're talking about an interview, the advice that I give everybody, and I get a lot of pushback for it because people think that it's what you're describing, it shows weakness, is I say if you're not walking out of the interview with the next step, like, hey, we want to hire you, when can you start, would be the best, right? But, hey, are you available to come back next Friday, right? That's another next step. Not, well, thank you, we have other people we're talking to, we'll be in touch. That's not a next step. So I advise candidates to ask, what concerns do you have about, what would the next step be? Well, the next step would be we would probably have you come back. Okay, can we set that up now? Well, we still have some people that we need to speak to. Okay, they're not buying. What are the concerns? What's keeping you from moving to that next step? And a lot of people think that that's showing weakness. I think it's showing strength. And I think it speaks to your point, which is, hey, look, I took 3 hours out of my day to come in here, or 20 minutes to have this phone call with you, and nothing's happening. So what's the disconnect? And you have to do it in a non sort of aggressive way. But I don't see any reason why you wouldn't do that.
But that's very much a sales mentality, right? And I think you and I both work in sales, and we know that I don't want to deal with a customer that is not going to make. I want to hear it now, because it's too late. It's a waste.
But can anybody that's not sales afford to not do these things?
I agree.
Right. It's strong. It's a strong tactic, right? I mean, what do you guys think for the non-sales people? I mean, I hate to say I'm in sales, but, and I haven't put on a suit. My dad gave this to me because we just had the Jewish New Year and I needed a suit to go to the synagogue, but otherwise I'm in sweats and a hoodie, so I just wanted to look the part tonight. But what would you say, what would you say if I told you that's what you should do when you go on a job interview? Does that seem strong, like strong-arming?
Strong, but not strong-arming. I mean, people like a certain sense of self-confidence. Because you have to be able to do your work, you have to be able, especially with development and everything, you have to be very self-motivated and confident in what you do. They don't, and if you can exude that during the interview, then it is, as a person who's been an interviewer, those candidates always resonated with us better than those that were passive.
So it may be slightly. You were going to say something?
I think it depends also on what you're selling in your position, and then the person that you're trying to connect with. Because if you're, say, a freelance designer, you're not looking to get a specific company to invest in you 100%. Like, you're not looking for a full-time position, but you're looking for a client through them. So if you make the suggestion that, they don't have anything for you right now, can I get a call back, or can I call you back in 2 weeks to see if anything new has come up? I feel like that seems really reasonable. But if because maybe in that 2 weeks they'll get another job that does match your style. But if you're looking for a specific full-time job, a position at that company specifically, then saying can I call you back in 2 weeks, or can I follow up with you, does feel a little needy.
Yeah, but if you know you want that specific job, then you do
I don't even think I don't even think you need to know. I think it's just good practice.
But,
I think.
Right, but my point was you say what's the hang up, or
Yeah, you wouldn't phrase it like that, but that's what you're essentially.
What needs to be done to progress? Is there something that you need further information on from me?
they should be asking you for the next step, right? Like I said, the best case scenario is we would like to hire you. When can you start? That doesn't happen very often. Sometimes, but they'll ask you, are you available to do a follow-up call with so-and-so on Thursday, or what's your schedule like next week? Like there's some buying sign, like things are the ball is moving down the field. But if you don't have that, then you're just kind of stuck. And so I wouldn't phrase it like, can I call you in 2 weeks and see if you've made a decision? Because that feels weak and needy. I would ask them, well, I would be straight up, call it like it is. Like, hey, I was hoping to come in and then, find out that you guys want to hire me, or at least maybe have me come back and meet with some of the other folks here at the company, but I don't feel like I'm walking away with that. Do you mind if I ask if there's any concerns that you have about my experience or what I bring to the table that would give you pause? And if they say, honestly, no, there's really nothing, then you could say, okay, but usually there's something, because if there wasn't, they would just be agreeing to move forward. And so then it's up to you if you want to try to overcome those objections on the spot, or if you want to take that information and then maybe think about it, follow up later. But that's overcoming objections, and that's a whole nother kind of like sales track. I don't know how many times you'll get objections when you do an elevator pitch. Well, probably a lot, actually. You pitch your idea for a startup, and someone goes, that's terrible. Like, you mean like so-and-so company that failed? But again, it's context. What are you trying to get out of it? So we got 30 minutes left. We don't have to use all the time, but I thought it would be healthy to have us break into just small groups and have you guys collaborate together on a pitch for General Assembly. If somebody asked you where you were last night and you say, oh, I was at this workshop at General Assembly, they go, oh, what's General Assembly? What can you convey to them that would compel them to maybe want to learn more or be interested? And again, it's an exercise like doing push-ups or something, just to kind of jog your brains. You guys cool with that? All right, so we got you three up here, you three, and then you four? Sweet.
Yeah.
Where do you plan to work?
I am a customer staffer, so I actually will like look at what recruiters have put into their past events. Just see if they can speak about people in past events, like see the recruiter.
As your career awareness expert, like sources and top fields. Yeah, I know. I just, so I guess that's like how you're
Yeah, all the time. Because I'm like, I need to network. I need to like.
Yeah, recruiters are perfect for it because they're always.
So Green River. I work on Green River. So it's kind of nice from here. I live like downstate. Yeah. What are you looking for?
For me? So right now I'm going through
Lincoln? What I saw on Meetup for next week, I think it's Tuesday, there's I am about so it's from 6 to 7.
Oh, I went to that one last Tuesday.
How was it?
It was okay. It was all there too. You too. But I didn't
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I know how they do.
Yeah. Well, maybe they're
Yeah.
We did a bunch of stuff around this.
Really, actually, I have. And it's really difficult because I can only imagine like 4 years old. It's like,
I did teach for a while. I taught a evening class. It was a normal class. It wasn't
There's also so I've been doing that. I'm giving presentations. Seattle Lean Startup. Yeah, Lean. So the last time they did a one-page business plan, so which is a skill to have. They've done just different things in Seattle, branding, pitching their business, stuff like that. So the guy that leads it, so my Weiss, Royce, he's always looking for stuff. It's $10. And that's pretty game.
oh yeah.
I've never been to club.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's mostly.
Or you can do like, just like, you would be like a tall building or something in Seattle would look out. But when you actually
You guys all get one done? Okay, cool. Is there a spokesperson from each group that'll come up and do it? Okay, and question, did you guys write the pitch to have some kind of call to action? Do you want to add one in? You already got one. No? You don't have to. Let's see how it works would you guys go first with the call to action?
She will do the pitch.
You'll do the pitch? Okay.
I'm gonna read what
Oh, he just wrote it for you?
Okay, so we come up with one sentence like General Assembly is a training, is a technology-focused training that help individuals who would like to progress their careers at an affordable cost. So that's the whole pitch we come up with.
Okay. So is there some like next step? That's what I was suggesting is like, is there a way that you could add something in to it?
Well, we did, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I didn't wrote it that one, but he come up with a cool idea like if you guys like go out and meet somebody who said like okay next week I'm going to a free event at General Assembly that provide this kind of program and like that's how people they have a lot of freedom and that you can come along with something like that.
So you'd be asking the person to join you?
Yeah.
That's pretty bold. Is this someone you just met in a bar? Join me, General Assembly. All right, cool. Thank you. Who's next? You guys? No? We're not ready yet? You ready? This group?
Us?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So our pitch is, General Assembly is an educational company that also provides free workshops to help tech professionals further better themselves.
Cool. And then I say, that's nice.
Yeah, that's nice.
In a role play situation, so try it. Like, let's just say this was real world, and I say, hey man, what'd you do last night?
And then so pitch it. That's
Well, no, we're just talking.
Okay. I went to General Assembly, a company that does free workshops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, great.
See you later.
You want to go next time?
Yeah, there you go.
You should check it out.
Maybe I will.
Check out the website. Yeah.
Will you check it out, and then can we have a follow-up call on Friday where we discuss? You guys ready?
Sure. I can read. Alright. GA teaches bootcamp courses in tech like web and UX design. They offer free one-off classes. I learned how to improve my elevator pitch skills last night. Have you heard of GA?
No, I haven't.
Great.
See ya.
Let me tell you all about it.
Closed-end question. Yes, no, closed end.
Yeah.
You're only going to get a yes or no response.
Right.
What do you know about GA? Or
Can I show you the website?
yes, no.
Oh, I guess that's
Yeah, it's
You
tough,
want to better
but
yourself, don't you?
no. How about in what ways are you bettering yourself?
Yeah.
I'm not,
Yeah.
because I don't care.
Right.
Well, okay, then I don't want to be friends with you. See ya.
Right.
No,
Well,
but
that brings
that's,
up a good point, though, that hasn't been discussed, is at some point in time, you have to realize that it's a moot effort, and you don't want to
Yeah.
engage the person any
well,
further.
you asked who your audience is, and that's another thing is it's like there's lots of fish in the sea, right? So if someone's not biting, then, move on. You can't make yourself crazy.
Right.
You'll go nuts. If someone's it's just not working, then just move on. Like a recruiter, that's just, you're not getting your way with them. It's like, forget it. There's other recruiters, or I'll go do it myself. You don't need a recruiter. You can do it yourself. Are you guys ready?
Okay. General Assembly is a place that occasionally has like free public meetups. I guess it's also a place where you would actually be able to go and get classes if you want to learn more. But they had this one that I went to that was like this pitch, and we taught you how to do an elevator pitch. And it's actually like right off of like Seattle on 3rd. It's really easy to find. So if you're interested in tech, which of course you are because you're in Seattle, you should probably like go online to like Meetup or something, or like look on GA, because they will most likely have a meetup that will very much help you in like your job or something. You should
Cool. Wow.
Very beneficial.
Okay, I'll check it out.
Go do that.
Okay, right now?
Yep, you got a phone.
I'm going to stand here while you pull your phone out and research it.
She's supervised.
No, but I mean, that's great. I do really, and this has been a learning experience for me because I didn't come into this thinking a lot about what are you trying to accomplish with the pitch. Obviously, you want to pitch better, but that's not enough. Like, what are you hoping to accomplish? And you've got to ask for something. There's got to be a next step. Otherwise, why do it at all? Why go on the job interview? Why present the idea to your boss, right? If you aren't trying to accomplish something from it.
Just shouldn't be afraid of a no. Like if it's a no, then just move on.
Well, if you're afraid of hearing no, then you shouldn't be putting yourself out there in the first place. And a lot of people don't. I mean, isn't that like the main reason why people don't do stuff? Is because they're worried about rejection? I mean, rejection is hard, but like, it's part of life. And I mean, I don't want to get all philosophical, but my personal feeling is like, other people's opinions don't really matter, Like, your opinion of yourself matters more than anything. So, care about what you think about yourself, not what other people think about you. Because then you're focusing on improving yourself, which is going to attract more people to you. But I think too many people worry that if I do this, how other people might react. And it's stifling, right? And maybe it's just because I worked in a lot of bad sales jobs where I had to hammer the phones for hours on end, and you hear no, 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 and you just kind of get immune to it. But I mean, most people are not going to be into whatever it is you're doing. That's just like how it is. You can't be friends with everybody. You can't please everybody. So to your point about knowing when to pull the plug on something, it's like, if you're not interested, you know, I'll spend my time with someone who is. Or I won't, but I'll keep trying, you know? And then, you know, ultimately it's up to you to decide, is this a path I want to continue down? Am I deriving pleasure from it? Or do I want to go a different direction? Any follow-up questions or thoughts? A lot of this is esoteric, I know, and kind of abstract, but hopefully it kind of frames your thinking around how to get ideas across. And I think the big takeaway for me is knowing how to create a next step or an action. So when you meet Bill Gates in the elevator and he asks you who you are and you tell him, then you make sure you ask him for something in return. Can I give you my card and email you to set up time to meet, to talk more about what I'm working on? Right on. Hey guys, if you want, here's some ways that you can follow me. Like if you use any social media, because I do put out a lot of content. A lot of it's focused on sales strategies and techniques for non-sales people. So it's all, you know, I'm not using it to like post pictures of myself on the beach or anything like that. I don't think anyone wants to see that. But I do create a lot of videos, and I do a lot of blog posts, and it's usually stuff that's pretty applicable to whatever it is you're doing. I call myself top biller because some of it is specific to the world that I work in with recruiting and helping other people like me do a better job in their recruiting function. But a lot of it is just very general and kind of designed to kind of help you guys think about things. And I'm trying to do some memes too with moderate success. It's fun. Kind of get lost in the shuffle. It's all about having the right hashtags, I think. And also, it has to be funny. But I really appreciate your guys' time. And feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to chat. I do 15-minute calls for free. So if you ever want to just run something by me and hear my take on it, I'm always available. And that's really it. So have a safe night. Thank you guys very much. All right.
That I use when I do consulting for startups. So, thank you. Yeah, thank you.